What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, continuing my deep dive into Neil Young's catalog, doing the main studio chronology on Fridays. In between Fridays, I'm hitting everything released between the main studio albums. Just did Harvest Moon. Got Sleeps with Angels coming up later this week, if you're watching this in real time, or no, or, contemporaneously, whatever. So today we got Unplugged. MTV's Unplugged, the 1993 release. If you're new to this channel or haven't watched recently, I have blepharitis in this eye. It's red and not too fun to look at. So sunglasses, reflections, sorry about all that, but it makes it easier for me to do videos and you don't have to avoid one half of my face, even more so than you may already want to. So anyways, Unplugged, MTV. And my thoughts on this, just to give you this sort of blanket statement, and then I would offend that blanket statement as we go on, is that there is half of a great album on here. It's the first half. And if the approach to the first half had continued in the second half, this could be an absolutely essential, top tier, all-time Neil Young live album. Unfortunately, halfway through the album, I don't know if time-wise it's halfway, but song-wise it's halfway, things change, and I don't think they change for the better. They don't change necessarily. They change for the worse, obviously, or I wouldn't be making this case. They don't go bad. I think the second half is enjoyable, but that's the problem. The second half is merely enjoyable, and I think there's failed opportunities. There's missed opportunities on the second half that I think if the first half approach had been stuck with, this would be a fantastic album. And the difference is this. This is Unplugged. It's not solo. The first 7 songs are solo. It's just Neil. A guitar, a piano, a harmonica, maybe a pump organ, and a choice I don't support, but we'll go with it. Really compelling. 2 absolutely phenomenal performances of songs I've heard who knows how many times in my life. These performances stand out. Second half of the album, more musicians come in, an accordion, a drummer, more guitars. It just becomes an acoustic band. And I think it's a failed opportunity for Neil to take songs that, especially in 93, that we don't have acoustic solo versions of, particularly the Harvest Moon songs. Harvest Moon, Unknown Legend, From Hank to Hendrix. These versions don't sound all that much different from the album versions. But if it was just Neil and a guitar or Neil and a piano with those 3 songs, this kind of becomes essential. I don't think there is a performer more compelling as a I'm by myself artist as Neil Young. There's people that can compete with him, but for my money, Neil Young takes that. He's the winner in that category. So the first half of this, I just think is like a home run. It's just the 2014 Spurs operating their offense at the highest level possible. And you're just like, yeah, just stand back and let them go. And then the second half, they're like overthinking things and you just get bogged down and it just becomes, oh, yeah. That's my overall view of this album. But what is incredibly great about the first half, it's just Neil. He's got a guitar, he's got a piano, he's playing some fantastic harmonica. And the set list is fantastic. Even the back half, the set list is fantastic, so that's not the issue. Opens up with the Old Laughing Lady. I just think that's a great opener. We're going way back to the 60s. We're kind of not one of his biggest hits, very wordy, not Dylan-esque, but in that Dylan-esque 60s territory. And it's just Neil being Neil in the purest sense. Beautiful. Mr. Soul is next. And this Mr. Soul, it sounds more world-weary and more, I don't know, this is 93. Neil, a couple years earlier did the whole Ragged Glory tour. He had a reaction to the war in there. He's having not marital problems, but for personal struggles because of things that are going on in his personal life. There's a wariness to him. And Neil's always been someone who kind of looks back to the past and has this sort of missed ideals. We failed this, we failed that, the hippie dream is done. This Mr. Soul just sounds like it just sounds anguished, but it works perfectly. I think it's just a phenomenal Mr. Soul. World on a String is next. Great choice. Awesome selection. Just great. Not the most upbeat. It definitely doesn't have that. It's always, to me, the energy on this kind of feels weird on Tonight's the Night. Here it works perfectly. A little more resigned, a little more just sighing. Um, and then we get what I think is the highlight of the entire album, Pocahontas. This Pocahontas is just, he's throwing in little harmonica breaks between the verses, and his harmonica solos on here are next level fantastic. There is a weariness to this. There is a sadness to this. The whole line about like, they massacred our women and they might have left some babies lying on the ground. Like the sound of those harmonica solos is those lonesome, empty fields that are empty, not just because these people have been slaughtered by an invading, society, culture, country, peoples, but like the blood is still fresh and like the echoes of those crying babies are still there. And like, yeah, it might be now this empty space, but you don't want to go live there. The space has just absolutely been traumatized by violence. And like this Pocahontas is just, for a song that has such dark lyrics, it's always had this like just bounce to it. Nah, man, this is an intense Pocahontas, and one of my favorite songs, if not my all-time favorite Neil song. I've listened to Pocahontas who knows how many times in my life. This one gets me every time. I think this Pocahontas is just a next level Pocahontas. That's followed with String Man, a song from the 70s, which had not been released prior to this. He played it live a bunch of times. Now, because of all his archival releases, we have several versions of this that are out there in the sort of official Neil Young universe. This was the first time this appeared. Great performance of this song. Another song that touches upon like a soldier reflecting on, war, but the hippies have taken away everything he fought for. And just another sort of struggle with that like lost dream of whatever 60s hippie idealism, possibly was trying to, bring to the world, or, what the Vietnam War did to people. And String Man is one of those that's just like, you can't take away Neil's experience with like living as a musician on the West Coast in the 60s and 70s, that like the blood that was spilled in those riots and all of those protests in the Vietnam War, like that's just soaked into the DNA of this song. And to have him bring it back now and do it on MTV Unplugged, just like, this is a fantastic release. These first 5 songs, it's home run after home run. We're 5-0. Somebody, the manager of the other team might come out and call it. Then we get something I'm torn on. We get Like a Hurricane with the pump organ. Like a Hurricane with the piano would have been ridiculous at this point. Would have just been like, it would have broken your heart. Pump organ, I think, is a little too, one, sonically, it just stands out so much from everything else that it's almost jarring. 2, I just think it gives it a little too much of a, not comical, but somewhat of it just like not cliche is not the word, but just sort of this novelty aspect. Like it works when you have this full loud band behind it, because then the pump organ kind of gets lost in the noise. But here, I don't like it. I do wish it was a piano or even just an acoustic guitar. I give him props for bringing the pump organ and doing something different. But to me at this point, we're like, okay, but we're still solo Neil. After this, we get The Needle and the Damage Done, which you can never go wrong with that. Those first 7 songs, just that half of this album, it's a home run. Like, it's home run after home run. We're winning this. Championship is ours. Other team is just going to, like, unless we mess up, other team has no hope. But then we kind of mess up. There's an accordion that comes in. We got the full band that comes in. I still like the song selection. We're finally getting some songs off the new album, which, yeah, he released a new album. You got to promote that. I have no issue with that. Or he's going to. No, he had released it the year before, right? Yeah, he had released it the year before, in 92. So it's like, I feel like we lose the absolute uniqueness of Neil in the second half of this album. Opens up with Helpless, great Helpless, awesome, like kind of nice long musical intro before the vocals start. I think this one, I've heard so many versions of this that I'm okay with the extra instruments on this. I kind of wish it was just for this and then they left. That's not what happens. Then we get a Harvest Moon. I love this song, but I don't think it sounds that much different than the album version. And this was a chance for Neil to do this solo acoustic. That would have been amazing. This is still good, but it could have been great. It's here, could have been here. And then Transformer Man, another one. Love the song. Love trans. One of those that I think, thankfully, over time, trans has been sort of reevaluated and people see it more for the interesting experimentation, but logical experimentation in sort of Neil's musical evolution and his personal life and what was going on with his son. But he tries to like trans it a little and bring a little of that like synth vibe. And I think if he had just kept it acoustic or done it on a piano and kept it simpler and not try to, in some slight way, kind of emulate and kind of like simulate what the album was felt like, I think it would have been a more special performance. I think that's one of the beauties of Neil is he can take a song like Cowgirl in the Sand, which we got 14-minute versions of it, and he can do it as a solo artist, and you're still like, yeah, that's a ridiculous song. Transformer Man, I think he denies Transformer Man that opportunity. I think that could be a song where you're like, yeah, at the core of whatever he's doing with it musically, that's a ridiculous song. And I think he kind of robs it of that opportunity. Unknown Legend, again, sounds like the album version. Love the album, but I kind of wish acoustic. Look Out for My Love. I'm okay with this. Great song. Number of versions out there. I like the dunna. It works with the band. It's a good choice. It's kind of a deep cut. Going back to late 70s. Okay with that song. Long May You Run. I think the thing that surprises me most about this is the rather large audience reaction that it does get. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, all right. Long May You Run. I'm here for this. Also, we have different versions of this out there, so I'm okay with like a full acoustic band version of this. And then we close out with From Hank to Hendrix. Same complaint I have about Harvest Moon and from Unknown Legend. Those last 7 songs are in no way bad. The band sounds good. Neil sounds good. We got 3 new songs. I think Transformer Man is a great choice. I like the 2 deep cuts from the late 70s and Look Out for My Love and Long May You Run. Helpless, you kind of got to play that. So no real complaints about the songs. I just wish he had kept the whole thing just him, a microphone, a guitar, a piano, and harmonica. I think he really could have brought something special to these songs. And I was, I don't listen to this one much because there's so much other really good Neil out there. And as far as like hearing these Harvest Moon songs, I'd rather listen to the album because I think the entire album is pretty, S tier from start to finish. And when I do revisit this, I get excited and because I always forget that, these versions are kind of not that different from the album. And I want them to be just starker, and more like let Neil do with his voice what he can do with his voice, which is pretty amazing stuff, I think, in taking an emotion of a song and just tweaking it ever so slightly. So I enjoy this. There were 4 songs he recorded that were not played, that are not on the CD. They were played but not released. Dreamin Man, I'm okay with not that being on there. Sample and Hold would have been interesting, but I have a feeling he would have tried to transit a little bit, so it would have lost any really unique flavor. It would have just been like an attempt to bring trans to the Unplugged stage. War of Man, and then the thing I would have loved to hear is Winter Long. That would have been fantastic, especially if it was in the first half of the show, it was just him. But I think half of this, the first half of this, I think is great. I think it's almost essential because of that Pocahontas and that Mr. Soul. Really, that Pocahontas is, I think, that good of a performance that I'm glad I own this. I'm glad I have it. It's the first 7 songs that to me are the meat on the bones. And the last 7 are really just this sort of, I don't want to say generic because it's Neil Young and he still sounds great, but just kind of this trending towards the middle MTV Unplugged performance. Oh, also the piano and Helpless, especially towards the end, reminds me of Bruce Springsteen. And I like Springsteen. I'm not complaining that it reminds me of Bruce Springsteen, but it takes me out of Helpless to get a Bruce Springsteen vibe with the piano. There's just something very kind of something about it, very Born to Runish about that piano that oddly takes me out of the moment. But yeah. But yeah, I still think it's a worthwhile listen. It's definitely not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's kind of a tale of two halves. Came out hard, and we just kind of like settled for this on the second half. So that's what I would think. Those are my thoughts. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment. When I'm done with all of his live stuff, I will drop one massive ranking of all the live albums and just quickly go through them because there's a lot of them. But we're going to save that for the end, way down the line. All right. Thanks for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.